One of the essential principles in the law of contract is that every agreement reached between two people must be capable of performance. If it is impossible for the contract or the agreement to be carried out, then the agreement itself becomes meaningless. So it is an essential element of the contract that its performance must be possible. Now, there are quite a number of factors that prevent the performance of a contract. Some contracts are impossible to perform, maybe because they contradict the common law, or they contradict statutory law. We are going to look at just a few examples to illustrate this. Let's imagine that a lady called Jane makes an arrangement with a lady called Susan. At that time, it happens that Jane is expectant, or she's pregnant, and the agreement is that as soon as Jane gives birth, the baby is going to be given to Susan, who is going to purchase it at a cost of 1.5 million rand. Now, it is factually possible for the two of them to exchange the baby, but it is legally impossible for such an agreement to be reached. Or look at another example. Let's call him Mr. Philani. He agrees with a Mrs. Let's call her Mrs. Johnson, that they are going to establish and run a brothel whereby they are going to be hiring young men and young women who are going to be coming there to perform some different sexual activities and relations, so as to make money. They get clients to come into that brothel and so on and so forth. Now, it is possible factually for that brothel to be established. But how about the legal aspects of the whole thing? We are basically looking here at the fact that there are factors that therefore restrict the operation of certain businesses. They restrict the entry or the conclusion of certain agreements, meaning that it is legally impossible, even though it may be factually possible, to establish or rather to enter into agreements. Let us look at the first one, where these two ladies agree to buy and sell a baby. We are looking at here a contract that is contrary to public policy as well as good morals. How about the issue of running a brothel? Also, it is contrary to good morals. So then we are saying, though factually possible, it is legally impossible for those contracts to be concluded. So then the question is, what do we mean by impossibility of performance of a contract? Now we are saying an agreement is impossible to perform. It is legally impossible to perform if the rights and the duties created by it are contrary to the law. In other words, the rights and the duties created are not permitted by the law. They contradict the law. So under such circumstances, we say such a contract is impossible. It is legally impossible. It is unlawful because the conclusion or the reason of the objects of its existence, its rights as well as its duties, contradict the common law or the statutory law. There are quite a number of examples that come to mind here. For those that contradict the common law, we have already mentioned the issue of buying and selling a child, a baby, an infant. We've already also spoken about the running of a brothel. The common law, looks with disdain at the running of such kind of an enterprise. So any two people that enter into an agreement to run a brothel are doing so against the laws. Therefore, such a contract is not possible to perform. Sometimes you find that it is a contract that is not capable of execution. Imagine somebody says that they are selling all the oxygen in the town. I'm talking about the oxygen as the air that as it constitutes the air that blows around us. In the first place, if you are going to buy such oxygen, how do you trap it for yourself so that you make other people pay for it? How do you enforce that kind of thing? You can't reach a contract. Or somebody says to you that they are selling the sun or the moon. Even if you bought the moon, what would you do with it? So that's a contract that is impossible in itself. Now, we've got quite a number of contracts. Some of them, of course, they contradict public policy. For instance, we are looking here at contracts that are harmful to the society at large, to the public at large. And then we have contracts that involve the commission of a crime, where somebody is hiring a hitman to go and kill another. Such a contract is legally impossible. Even if the so-called hitman takes the money and doesn't kill the target, it becomes very impossible or difficult, in fact, impossible, let's put it that way, for the hiring person to enforce that contract in a court of law. So there are those that also run against the safety of the state, or people where you find people agree maybe to carry out agreements that threaten the safety of the state. Or you find that people are involved in contracts that are manifestly illegal transactions, so to speak. So those are some of the things that you need to think about when you think about impossibility of what you call legal impossibility of contracts. Now we are going to have another video, just watch the space, where we're looking at the consequences of this legally impossible contract. Thank you very much for being part of today's presentation. Enjoy your day.